So, Geraint, to what extent is your book fiction?
It's about 80% fact. I have taken some of the best stories that I heard from my colleagues and from my clients, and I've stolen them because they were so damn good. But essentially, this is my story. This is what happened to me during my 12-year career in the city. And unfortunately, as the book shows, I did turn from being quite a nice person into what I would call a ruthless, selfish, nasty, corrupt idiot.
Well, that's what you say, but you certainly described a lot of interesting characters as well.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, did some specific people find themselves in those characters?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone who works in the financial capital of the city, who worked in my sector, which is the utility sector, pretty much knows exactly which character is which character. And some of them, like the genius and the leader.
Hugo.
Hugo, well, I'm afraid Hugo definitely exists. He knows who he is. All our mutual clients know who he is. We haven't discussed it since the book came out, but I believe that if we were to meet, that particular man would probably punch my nose really hard.
And I must say for the viewers that that's the most negative person probably in the whole book. Now, when you describe the motives for the behavior of city boys, it seems that you describe them as victims, but aren't a lot of people just actually happy living their life the way they do in the city?
I don't believe so. It's easy for people who've made a bit of money to say that money doesn't make you happy. But I can assure you there was never a correlation between those people who are making lots of money and how happy they were. In fact, the city is full of people in their 40s, on their third wife, alcoholics, coke addicts, big, fat, red-faced people who wondered where it all went wrong, because the city sucks in all the talent from Britain, people who should be curing cancer, people who should be sorting out global warming, and they realise at a certain age often that they've made lots of money, but they've kind of wasted their lives.
When you talk about the vices of the speculators, you are very critical, but aren't they just a catalyst for what the society wants and the reflection of the market economy?
Yes, I mean, you know, it is a tragedy that at the moment, certainly in Britain and maybe across the world, the principal aim for everyone is just the accumulation of wealth. You know, religion has been discredited to a large extent, communism has, and now into the vacuum, people just want money. And the simple fact is that speculators often are just pushing an open door. That's to say, if they are betting against the Greek economy, that's because the Greek economy is in trouble. However, sometimes they do, in fact quite often, they do lots of illegal things to make sure their bets come good. They trade on inside information, they spread false rumors, they manipulate markets. They do anything to make a buck.
Can that be stopped, specifically the insider trading and spreading false rumors?
It's really hard. It's a really tough thing to stop. Certainly in Britain and America, for once, we are now trying to have a push. Because remember, in the city, all we ever do is weigh up risk and reward. And I'm afraid the risk of being caught for insider information has been zero. For about 10 years in Britain, we've had no convictions, and the rewards have been massive. Likewise for spreading false rumors. The city is full of greedy, ruthless, selfish people who will do anything to make money. However, at the moment, the police force is very ineffective. There is no deterrent whatsoever.
You described the financial sector as being somehow different, being perhaps more greedy, being more competitive. But when I was reading your book, I was thinking, isn't it the same wherever you look within the corporate sector? Perhaps it might be a little more extreme in the city, but the same features you could probably find everywhere.
You know what, you have got a point, because remember, my career started in the city and ended in the city. Now, since I've done my career in the city, I've been interacting with people in media, people in publishing, people in advertising, and much to my horror, there is the same amount of greed to some extent. However, I do believe that people go into the city for one reason, to make a quick buck. And the actual fact of the matter is that it particularly attracts arrogant people who want to make a quick buck and have no regard for what their actions do to others. Hence, there are guys working in structured finance who felt able to infect the world with $1 trillion worth of bad loans and cause a credit crunch, knowing those loans would explode, but not caring because they made big bonuses in the meantime.
Were you arrogant?
It's very hard not to become arrogant. When you're 25 years old and you're earning 5 or 6 times more than your father, who is a hard-working man, who was a politician, and you're earning 8 times more than all your friends who've become teachers or, you know, stupid jobs, of course you become arrogant. And if you're a client in the city, you become even more arrogant because everyone is kissing your ass day in, day out.
No, I think it's probably difficult to get out of that spiral once you are in. But do you think that the people in the city, do you think that they have a plan for what they want to do afterwards?
Yeah.
Or they just don't even see that or think about that?
Everyone who goes into the city generally says, I'll do it for 5 years, I'll do it for 10 years. However, I mean, I said I'd do it for 5 years, and I ended up doing it for 12 years. However, after 10 years, that's when you're making the serious money. So you say, I'll just do it for another 5. Let me tell you a story. When I went into the city, me and 5 of my clients sat down, and we discussed how much money you'd need before you left. We came to a conclusion, £2.5 million, maybe 4 million euros. After this, suddenly we achieved this goal, and they said, you know what, no, it's going to be £10 million, or let's say 17 million euros.
It just keeps growing.
It just keeps on growing. Greed is endless. You're not happy with 1 Ferrari, you want 2 Ferraris. You know, and this is why it's so evil. It's so rare that people actually leave. What I did is what people say they're going to do, but I actually managed to do it.
You also went through different banks. Do you think that the corporate culture differs in those places, or basically it's the same?
No, the European banks, which I principally were at, like Dresdner and Commerzbank and Société Générale, they were a little bit less aggressive, a little sleepier, and frankly, less efficient at making cash. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, these places produce robots who work 15 hours a day and have a single goal, in the case of Goldman's, to become a partner, and then you really start making the big money. You know, there was a rumor that went round that Goldman Sachs Human Resources Division looked for people who were probably bullied at school, because they are the guys who've got the necessary insecurity to work 15 hours a day.
Now, why do you think that there is this difference between European banks and the US banks?
I suppose it's a bit like the president who says the business of America is business, you know? There's something so almost beautiful, yet also very frightening about the culture in a place like Goldman Sachs, which is so hard and fast. I would argue that maybe in Europe we have a slightly better attitude to life. You know, in America, a lot of banks give you 2-3 weeks holiday a year. Now in France, you know, you get that every month. So, you know, it's basically, it's about a slightly different set of priorities. In Europe, we do actually value our life outside work. If you had that, if even suggesting that attitude in an American bank, you could be fired for probably.